Welcome to Black Man Lab. We are live with lab results. I am Marty Monaghan, the Vice Chairman of the Black Man Lab, and excited about our conversation tonight. We are going to be talking about relationships with women. That's what we talked about this past Monday at the lab in our live session at the Andrew and Walter Young YMCA, and it was transformative. It was one of those conversations that we really need to have with our young men. So they have an idea about what good relationships look like and how they should be comporting themselves within that paradigm as well. So it was a really good conversation. We'll talk about that. But before I do that, just a little history about Black Man Lab. Black Man Lab started roughly over 4 years ago. Brother Miley Davis and 3 other brothers that got together to just have a talk with their sons. We know as fathers, quite often our sons tune us out, and we bring in a uncle, a godfather, a good friend, somebody that we can trust to have conversations with them, because for whatever reason, they'll listen to somebody else sometimes more than they listen to us at that certain age. So that started with just 4 fathers getting together, and eventually it grew to us having over 250 Black men in the room together, sharing and learning together in a what we call a safe and sacred space for Black men. So that's where Black Man Lab originated. And then where we are today is we are still meeting now, again, with COVID. We're meeting live at the Andrew and Walter Young YMCA, but we also are doing this as well. We're having a little bit of a deeper dive conversation with one of our panelists or whoever will be an expert on the subject matter that we have from the previous Monday, just to get a good idea of what gets them to where they are today. Again, the name of it is Lab Results. So we're looking to find out what it is that you did to help you to get to where you are today. Before we get started, what we do every week is we make sure that we acknowledge those that came before us, our ancestors, those shoulders in which we stand on, those folks that are our cloud of witnesses looking over us, proud of whatever we are doing as it relates to moving our people along in a positive way. So we, every week here at Lab Results, all we do is we exalt one name. We just say, myself and whoever we have on the panel, we just lift up a name, an ancestor that, would be proud of the work that we do. So today we have Brother Baba Wekesa here with us, who has been a great asset for the Black Man Lab. He's been a part of it. He's helped us along the way in so many different ways, and we appreciate him being here with us tonight. And I'm going to let him do some introduction of himself in a second. But before that, Baba, if you come on with me, and we're just going to lift the name of an ancestor and just give that name.
Amos Wilson.
Ashe. And I'm going to lift the name of Sylvester Williams. Ashe. Thank you so much. And with that, we're going to move right into it, Baba. Give our folks that are listening in introduction of who you are, what brings you into this space as it relates to our topic matter.
Again, my name is Wekesa Olatunji Madzimoyo, affectionately known in the community as Baba Wekesa. For those of you, most of you should know, well, if you don't, Baba is a title, it means father. And in our African tradition, once a Baba father had children, they were a Baba or father to all of the children in the community. And so it's a term of respect. And it's also a term of obligation that goes both ways. People will respect you. You also have an obligation to them. So I'm Baba Wekesa, and I am co-director of AYA, that's AYA Educational Institute. I'm a communication and conflict resolution expert and founder of the Warrior Healer Builder Communication and Healing Technology. My wife and I, Afia, she's the other co-director, Afia Madzimoyo. We've been together 34 years and looking come December for 35. It's been a wonderful, wonderful journey. We've been business partners together. We're co-directors. And so it's one thing to be married. It's another thing to be in business. We've been in business longer than we were married. We were in business, a neighborhood grocery store together. Well, actually, first there was an organization in Montgomery, Alabama, that we came together around, and that was the Montgomery Black Film Project. That is how we got connected. Then we started Unity Foods. We could quit our professional jobs, and then we were married. And so we've been in business together longer than we've been married. And so the things that I'm talking about and the tools that we'll be talking about have been why we've been able to do that. Because it's one thing to be married, and that's enough. That's a challenge itself. To be married and in business at the same time for the same amount of time is quite a feat. So I want to call her up and always lift her up as a co-director of our Education Institute.
Baba, you didn't share that on Monday. You shared a lot of stuff on Monday, but you didn't share that you all been working prior to even being married together. So that's even more of a feat.
It is indeed.
Yeah, so I stated that. Thank you so much. Well, let's get into the conversation. First off, what was your take on Monday? What did you think about the conversation Monday?
It was a great conversation, a needed conversation, and the people, brothers who came with real questions. It was a cross-generational conversation, which I really love. One brother, wanted to talk about, okay, this is how it is now, with me and with sisters and what brothers are experiencing. And so we got to talk about relationships and what's the same and what's different across generations. And so it was really great. We kept it moving in terms of panelists so that everybody there got to hear many different perspectives from us, and they got to bring different questions. And to me, that's a powerful conversation. It was a conversation that needed to be had because we just don't talk about it straight with each other in a safe place. How do we make this work? How do we make it work in the here and now? Not some mythical idea, but in the here and now. And so their questions led to real world examples. The folks who are the panelists like myself just brought it. And so it was a great conversation.
Yeah, definitely brought it, and definitely brought it with a level of honesty that I think you alluded to that was very needed for our young folks to hear, right? Because what they may be hearing quite often is what they see on social media or what they see on media, period, right? I think that one of the, go ahead, what were we going to say?
It's also good for us old heads to hear each other.
Sure.
Because, I mean, we certainly need to have it with our young people. And we also need to hear for some, in many cases, just to affirm, other cases to also learn, from each other, because we are old, some of us, and at the same time, and we're successful. Yet there is no cookie cutter. This is one of the things that came out of the session when some people were saying, my wife is never going to cut any grass. Okay.
Sure.
And I said, well, my wife won't let me,
right,
cut the grass in her garden. She has flowers everywhere. She has plants everywhere. She has whatever. And she insists on cutting the grass. All right. Sure. So I can't be one of them brothers like, no, my wife ain't going to be touching no lawnmower. My wife won't let me touch the lawnmower. And part of what that was about is being in relationship with who you're in relationship with and negotiating that based on who you are and who they are, as opposed to having some cookie cutter. This is how you do it, and this is what makes it work. And so I think it was great.
Right, and I think within that, the dynamic that I was getting from the panel was, these relationships are fluid, but you have to be willing to bend in certain places, and what you may have thought was the way something was supposed to be,
right,
might not be exactly what it is.
That's right. No, you're right on the money, and that was I think, and I know that was a takeaway for some of the young folks, and it's really important that we know how to be in the relationship as opposed to into a fantasy relationship. We'll get it from social media. We'll get it from television. Watching things influences. Sometimes we don't think they influence us. But if all you've seen is this kind of model, whether that's the one you grew up with and or a fantasy one on television, then you don't think yours is a success unless it fits that model. And Brother Jihad said straight up, one of the things we need to do is we need to get rid of these white supremacy models of what a relationship is. Okay, when is making it? What makes a good relationship? All right. That is, because we can have these things and you judge that you're not in a good relationship when in fact it might be quite a good relationship. Right? You know what I'm saying? It may not give you everything you want, but that everything I want can be that kind of fantasy. You see what I'm saying? And this is where talking to each other is really important, because you can get like, oh, yeah, that is a good relationship. You know, my wife and I argue, you know, I don't know how you're gonna have a good relationship without it. Okay. I flip that. Not, a good relationship, you never argue. No, I don't know how you have a good relationship if you don't argue or you talk. Argument is a disagreement. She wants one thing, I want another. We work that out. That's the argument. Okay. Now, it doesn't have to escalate to craziness. At the same time, for me to have the standard that I'm not in a good relationship because we argue is unrealistic, and it'll lead me to maybe throwing away what I have when in fact all I need is some tweaking.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. If people have, I heard this somewhere, people have passion for the relationship and are trying to get to the same place, but they may have two different ways of getting there. That's okay, right? You're trying to get to the same endpoint, but you may just have two different designs on how to get there. And that's what creates that friction.
That's right.
But if you have a conversation and you work through that argument in a conversation, you all can get there, right?
Of course. And you learn something about the person. That is, you learn, I'll give you an example. When Afia and I married, I asked her, because I noticed that she didn't say I love you as readily as I do. Okay. We loved each other. I could tell that, but I'm from a family that, like, you walk in the door, men, women, don't matter. Hey, I love you. We get ready to go. I love you. Well, so I said, listen, I need to know that if, as we progress in this relationship, if I ask you to tell me you love me, that you'll do that, okay? Without some version of, I must be some punk because or I must be some insecure dude because you just told me yesterday.
Sure.
And she said, sure I will, and I'm glad you asked. She said, I notice I go to your family reunion and y'all, I love you from the time you get there to the time you leave. She said, in my family, we don't say it. Now I know my folks love me. They show it, okay? And they may say it occasionally, but nowhere close to how is your family. So I'll be happy to do that. Now, what did I learn? I learned that in her family, doing was the currency of love.
Yeah.
Okay? In my family, you got to say it. You're going to come up in here and ain't say, I don't love you, right? And hugging each other. She said, no, my family don't do that kind of hugging stuff. She said, that's a good thing, and I want to learn to do that. But you see, we are bringing two different pieces together, all right? And so working it out, as opposed to saying, I could have not said anything and decide after a while, she never says she loved me, so she don't love me, okay? Right. As opposed to asking for what I wanted and not making the assumption that because she didn't do it the way I would do it, that it means something. That's the whole story I make up. So that part that you're talking about, not only can you work it out, that bump leads to closeness. I have more understanding of her and her family, and she has of mine.
Right. And had you not had the conversation around it, now you have conflict, right? Yeah. You go from having a maybe a discussion that's a little warm, a little heated, to actually having full-on conflict where you just shut it down.
always gonna go, you don't never tell me, no, don't let her do something, right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
up and I haven't said anything, right?
Exactly.
So now, you don't even love me. You never tell me you love me. Oh,
Right.
I'm throwing everything in the kitchen sink, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to feeling what I'm feeling and saying, here's what I want. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not getting it like I'd like it. You know, can I we willing to do that? And she says, sure. And then she would also ask me, will you do certain things? Like if I wanted to, you see what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
so that what we call stew and spew. Instead of dealing with the conflict. And I see people are conflict averse.
Sure.
It's how you resolve the conflict, right? It's you know, when I'm wanting to be with somebody, I'm not assuming that we're not going to have conflicts. I'm just assuming that is not malicious.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The conflicts, the bumps. You can't ask two people to come to you. You ask two people raised by the same parents that they're going to bump. Okay? So you know, I've been raised in North Carolina and New York. She's been raised in Alabama. We're going to bump.
Right.
Here's what you do with the bumps. You knit them. That's the understanding. So you take the bumps and you use them to knit understanding in the relationship. When I'm doing workshops, very often I will do this. You know, I like you, you like me, we like some of the same things. We just kind of fit, and so it comes together. And that's the beginning of a relationship. And that's important because you got to have certain things that just fit. Now, without the bumps, though, if all you got is this, when I'm doing workshops, I'll say I want somebody to come up and grab my wrist and try to pull it apart. And I'm going to try to hold it together. And they try to pull it apart. And I'm trying to hold it together. And invariably, they win because I have nothing to grip. I can't grip on very much, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I like her. She likes me. We do certain things and whatever. I said, okay, so let's say that these are the places that we have bumped. And out of each bump, what we do is create an understanding. And so now I ask people to come up and try to pull them apart. It ain't happening, okay? It just won't happen. And so, you know, things that are said outside of the relationship, other things that bumps in, it don't really create, you're not being pulled apart, because you have embraced the bumps as doorways, as portals to greater understanding.
Love that. Love that. And quite honestly, have experienced that in a good way, you know, more recently than not. But in terms of, you know, you have some conflict, you have conversation around it. And when you get through that, the other side is now you feel that much more close, you know, that much more close. You know, you touched on, you talked a little bit about your family and how you guys were, you know, very much I love you and hug you and all that. And Fia was not that way. But I want to go to what was your world like growing up when you were a kid and how you saw love growing up?
In a lot of different ways. My primary relationship that I grew up with is my mother and my father, and they separated when I was 5 years old. Okay. We were in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We were self-employed then in a salvage business, and my mother also came out of a farming family, so there's some of that going on. And but they couldn't hold it. My father had been also come out of the military. And so at 5, she puts me in the car and we go to New York. Well, all right. So first the Bronx, then Brooklyn. Now here's what I liked. And I lived a year with my mom, and then I would live a year with my dad. And then I would live a half year with my mom and a half year with my dad. When I was with my mom, she talked so positively about my dad, I had to ask her, well, Mom, if Dad was all that, why are y'all ain't together? And she said, now I'll tell you. Because her first job, okay, was not to have me carry her load. This African proverb said an elephant's head is no load for a child. So she had issues with my dad. She didn't want me to carry her issues with my dad, okay? Same when I'm with my dad, right? He respected my mother, right? Now, fortunately, she left and they separated before it got ugly. Okay, because what happens if you stay when you really get to where there's a real impasse? If you stay, it gets real ugly, and so it's hard for you to access why you were attracted to the person and why you married them in the first place. Okay, and so she made that move. I tell people many times, leaving my dad was the best gift my mama gave me, and they think, oh God, your dad must have been horrible. I said, no, actually it wasn't. She loved him, and she left because it wasn't working. And she got to tell me about all the reasons she loved him. And then I asked, so why y'all aren't together? And she said, okay, I can tell you that now. You're right. So, and they had a respectful relationship throughout the whole time. Okay. Now they remarried and set about the business of then making new relationships. All right. And my mother had a bunch of brothers and sisters, 9 or 8 others. And I grew up around them and their relationships. So I got to see a lot of different relationships, some lasting, many of them lasting a long, long time. All right. And in my case of my mother and father, they're remarrying and they're getting to make this new relationship work. And I'm the oldest. So when my mother remarried and had children, I'm still the oldest. And so these are my sisters. And my dad remarried, and we didn't believe in that step stuff, right?
Sure.
This is your brother, right? And this is, yep. And so I had 2 mothers. We want to know something funny. My father decided to marry someone born on the same birthday as my mom.
Oh, wow.
So every birthday, right?
That's pretty heavy.
I got 2 mamas, right? And my 2 mamas is the birthdays the same guy. Like, oh God, no, you didn't.
He's a man who knew what he liked.
Hey, and he went for it again, right? They had years. There was years different. They weren't the same age. They were just born. Anyway, those were my early, and not only was it showed me relationships, and it was a good relationship out of a bad situation. You see what I'm saying? Often there's a bad situation. We separate, we split, we whatever. And it's like contentious throughout the years, right? It was not, all right? They loved each other until they died. Now they knew they weren't going to get back together. They remarried and whatever, and they accepted that. And the people they married knew they loved each other. You see, y'all, this is what people don't get. You can love somebody. That doesn't mean you're going to go to bed with them. That doesn't mean you're going to be in a relationship with them. It didn't fit. They had something, right? And it was good, and then it wasn't, all right? And they produced me, okay, out of that, all right? And so they didn't have to deny what they had at one time. They also weren't trying to recreate it while they were married to somebody else. They were now trying to make those other relationships work. And so that's what I grew up with. And so that's the best answer. I'll let you do the follow-up. You asked the question of what
that was great. I mean, I think that it's important for us to kind of know what was your model, right? Because that can form your thought process and opinion on how you are going to go into a relationship, good or bad, right?
That's right.
Like at the lab, before we started everything, Maoli and I wound up, I didn't expect him to do that, but we wound up kind of sharing a little bit about our backgrounds, right, and his relationship with his father. And I was there, so I know what that was like. And then mine was very different. My parents have been married for 60 years. Wow. As of August. But here's the thing. Here's what's funny, Baba, is what you just described. So my parents, when I was, I think, in first grade, they separated for 7 years. We lived, my brother and my mother and I lived in Maryland. My dad's still in Chicago. But at no point was there ever anything bad said about one or the other. And then what happened? 7 years later, they wound up getting back together. Exactly. So we never missed a beat, in terms of seeing that love all the way through. So that was my expectation.
Exactly.
Right. That was my expectation. So I think it's important that, we kind of craft that conversation, because I wonder, as our young folks grow up, what do they see?
Oh, no, no, no. It's critical what they see. I mean, part of what happened. I mean, in the 80s, when the manipulated crack epidemic, you know, and the more aggressive attack on our communities in many different ways, you know, had breakups happen, and all kinds of things that really hurt us a lot. And so it's really important that our folks see models, and this is one of the reasons we do every year. This is our 11th year. Actually, that COVID year was a kind of asterisk. We'll be able to be back together. So this is our real 10th year celebration of having Black Love Day dinner celebration, right? Where we honor people who've been married for a long time, okay? And who've been not only married for a long time, but have been used their marriage as a foundation for community activism, all right, in our community. And so we invite young people to come, younger couples to come so that they get to see and get to be able to access and even talk to around the edges these couples who've been through all kinds of stuff, okay? So that they can really learn and they can also see examples of, wow, couples. And what they also, it's important for them to see, because these are powerful couples. You don't mean Mauli and Jana were one of our awardees. Well, neither one of them are slouches, okay? Okay, you see what I'm saying? So they get to see not the stuff you see on television. You get to see a powerful Black woman and a powerful Black man, all right, being in a relationship, making it work together, and having enough stability that their stability allows that the individuals get to work and serve the community. And we want people to see that. We want our young people to see it. One, to see that it's possible. Next, to see how to do it. I want to say something. Often our community is very long on ought-tos and very short on how-tos. We'll say we ought to do this, and young people ought to do this, and so-and-so ought to do this, and we ought to do that. We ought to unify. It's like, if I hear one more of what we ought to do, because it's not hard. It's true. Like, should we unify? Yes. Should we?
Yeah.
So the question becomes for someone who's not grown up seeing what you saw. Is that even possible?
Yeah.
Okay, so I see somebody doing it, so it's possible. Next question is, how do I do that? How do I do that when I haven't seen that? Okay, how do I? And so that we begin to share how we do it, okay, is then gives them options that they can use, pick and choose from, mold from, learn from, as they make theirs, okay? And it's just, to me, just important that we get to be at least as long, if not actually longer, on how to do it.
Well, yeah, that's, you know, that's really the impetus for what Black Man Lab is, right? Is that we have so much within our community that is capable, is knowledgeable, that winds up just sitting, right? Because people are talking about the ought to all the time and not necessarily the how to, right? And so that's really what Black Man Lab is about, on two folds, right? That piece, but then also as we talk about community and the
support,
the community support, and then all the fissures within our community that are really driven by Black men being identified as the glue, if you will, you know, for the whole picture, you know, because if we're not there, then now we have a fractured community.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So that's really what Black Man, you'll get me to going and going. But
I mean, yes. I mean, I've been, fortunately, I've been around at that very first meeting that you talked about. All right. Now, I don't mean the first meeting Black Male Lab. I'm talking about the first meeting that was held in my own office.
I know. Yeah, I know.
And so, yeah, it's about how do we do that? And that's what I'm proud of about the Black Man Lab. In fact, that's why it's called the Black Man Lab, you know, because lab is how you figure out how to do stuff. okay,
Exactly.
as opposed to ought to. Let me say something that was there that I shared on a Monday, and that is, and it's something that I share with couples and young couples and to-be couples. I said, if you're trying to make a relationship work, you're trying to get it together, they often say, oh, Baba, so what do you look for, when you start it? I said, find someone who can leave you. Okay? And they'd be like, huh, Baba, what you mean? I said, find somebody who has the wherewithal. They have the strength, they have the independence, they have the foundation to leave you.
Once again, you were in my head, because that was my next thing that I was going to bring up, actually, was that was one of my favorite things that was said on Monday. And I hope that everybody got it. I hope that everybody got it.
I mean, no people did. No people came up afterwards. Because I said, once you find somebody who has the wherewithal to leave you, then your job is to convince them every day not to.
Yeah.
Okay? Your job is to have a relationship. But the opposite of that is me finding someone who needs me so much, right? Who seems so broken, right? Without me, they are not complete, or they can't move on their own independently, and therefore we create this symbiotic relationship as opposed to a partnership relationship where they're going to stay with me, and I have this kind of hovering over them, this kind of assurance. And what happens is I'm not seeking partnership. When it's someone who has a family that they can go to, or have friends that they can relate to that support them, who have whatever it takes, then they are choosing to be with me because they want to be with me, and that being with me is better, okay? They can do more, right? As opposed to, I need to stay with her because without her, I'm nothing.
Right.
I tell them, please be careful of that. That is not a compliment, okay? Without, now, within a certain context, yes, and some loving, but now this sense of I am nothing without you, and they really mean that?
Yeah.
Run. Because I want someone who brings something to the table. And here I'm not just talking about money, okay? Mm-hmm. And that's another thing we really had a good thing talking about material things. But I'm not talking about just money, all right? Because many people talked about when me and my wife get together, we were broke, okay? And all of that. I'm talking about what they bring to the table is something you admire.
Yeah.
Okay? Something that you admire, right? Absolutely. Not just somebody to fix. See, this is a contrast I want to make. We find somebody who we think if we fix them, they need fixing, then they will be beholding to us. Mm-hmm. No. I mean, we all got to do our adjustments, and I'm certainly a better man having been with Sophia 34 years than I was without her. At the same time, I wasn't someone to be fixed, and she wasn't someone to be fixed. Mm-hmm. She was someone that I admired, and I believe that we can make some beautiful music together. Because I bought my stuff, good stuff and bad stuff. She bought her stuff, okay? And when it's like, no, I'm bringing the good stuff and you just got potential. Look out.
Right.
It's often driven actually by our fear when we do that.
Yeah.
We often figure that if we get the broken-winged bird, and we help them heal, then they will stay with us.
Sure.
You think about that, though. When you fix the broken-winged bird,
what does it do?
They may stay or they may fly away, right?
Exactly.
All right. And another thing that I told brothers, or I tell them all the time, in a relationship, if I can't lift the sister up, if I can't make the sister better off, then I don't need to be in it. Mm-hmm. My job is to lift her up. Now, sure. I don't mean that it always works, because I also told folks that me and Mama Fia have been together 34 years, but that's number 3, okay? My first 2, I was learning how, okay? You know what I'm saying? And I don't have no shame about that. You know, that is the first relationship, I learned what I overlooked. I learned what I minimized. I learned what I didn't see. Okay. And I'm not talking about the person was a bad person. No, the wonderful woman was a beautiful and wonderful woman. It's just that there are certain things I ignored as opposed to checking them out and talking about them. All right. And then we could have come to some agreement that we were going to be friends, and, we might, have a night out or night in or whatever. At the same time, that it wasn't going to work for a forever and ever kind of relationship. And in the second time, I did a better job in terms of looking. And also it became clear that there was an impasse. All right. We had so many things that worked, and there were some key things. And there's a difference between like little things and deal breakers. Okay. It became clear for her. Now, it wasn't a deal breaker for me. It's a deal breaker for her. And she said bye. She left me. Okay. And that's okay. I mean, it wasn't okay then. I certainly cried. I didn't want it to happen. We had a son together. And I realized, man, I recreated what my folks did, because I was, my mother and father was separated. I was a single child. We had a son. So I had to go to drawing board and start doing some studying. And I was only after one question: what was my part? Okay, not who was to blame. I'm past that. Okay, not who was to blame. All right. What was my part? I don't care whether my part was 1% or whether it was 99%. I wanted to know what my part was. And so what I'm saying is, after each relationship, I learned. So by the time I met Afia, I'm a better man. I'm more clear about what I want. I've learned from some of the others, okay? And I don't mean that I was a scoundrel. I don't mean that. I mean, I'm talking about deep stuff within me, about what I needed, what I wanted, things that I needed to take care of, things that were unrealistic that I needed to, for example, take care of other places. Sometimes we were the woman and we don't have enough of male companionship, and we want to be with the woman like 24/7. It's like, excuse me, how about, she got things to do in the world, maybe you ought to have some brothers you can talk to some of the time. You see, so doing that kind of analysis allowed me to then set up the relationship with Afia on a foundation that could sustain 34 years, and I hope I get to match your parents of 60 years and on, that kind of thing.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. I think that one of the things that I've learned, I think I might have shared it on Monday, is the number one thing that you can do is work on you, because you can't control what somebody else does. And if you put yourself in a position where you are being the best you that you can be, and analyzing pretty consistently about your shortcomings, and be honest, that I could have done that better. It gets you to a place like where you're at with Mama Thea right now, where you went through 2 other marriages, and then by the time you got with her, you'd worked some stuff out. That was you.
That was me. So, I never said anything negative about those women. There was no negatives to say. It was what you said. I was working on me. Okay. And this notion that we can control other people, right? Also, I will say, in the second relationship where the sister left, when she did, I felt a kind of peace that I'd never felt before. Now, this is interesting. It was sadness and peace. Here was the peace. I had done everything that I knew to do to make it work.
Right.
See, I didn't try to start packing my emotional bags early. I'd done everything I knew. So when it wasn't enough, while I was sad she left, I was also at peace that I'd done everything I could do. And so it was needed for it to be separated. You see, there was not unfinished baggage and all of that stuff like that. And and often we don't put those together. We don't understand how a relationship can be over and you're at peace with it. Sad? Yes, because I wanted something different. I can accept, that, but I'm at peace that I've done everything, to your point, that I could do, that I knew to do, up to that point.
That peace comes from, full disclosure, I've been there. That peace comes from when you say, I know that I did everything that I could possibly do,
Exactly.
and tried to meet every need here, and it's not there.
It's not that. Right.
It's
Now,
not there.
I may learn something else later, but it's everything that I know to do now. It's not everything that could possibly be done. You know, Marty might know something else to do, but I can't be. I'm not Marty. I did everything that and that's where the peace comes from. Right?
Sure.
As you said, I did everything that I knew to do.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And you're right. There's some great peace that comes in. There's sadness because you spent the time.
Yeah.
You know, and you may have on the front end you had in your mind what you thought it was going to be.
That's right.
And after going through this process, you kind of basically vetted yourself. Where you know what, I did what I could do. I checked all the boxes. Things that I was very introspective about, I dealt with, and here we are still. So while I'm sad to see it go, there is a high level of peace that I have within, and you wind up being that much more mature and better in that next relationship.
Absolutely. Just like, if you go into a business relationship and you start in business, people, because I came from a business family, all right, you go through some things, y'all. A deal is a relationship. You have a partnership. You have things you're going to work with. And if you look at them as opportunities for your own growth, then, the deals get better, okay, over time. You get to be a better seer. You get to call things quicker. You know what kind of person you would rather partner with or not partner with, okay? There's one other thing that people talked about that I want to raise up, and that has to do with men telling other men that, oh, you're insecure, all right? Or us telling ourselves, well, I'm insecure. Well, I like to say that I feel scared, or I feel anxious, or I feel whatever it is, as opposed to I am insecure, okay? Because I am insecure gets to be a statement about who I am.
Yeah, it affirms that.
Yeah, as opposed to what I feel, okay? And any man that doesn't feel some scare when they are dealing with a woman and wanting to build a relationship is either lying or lying to themselves, right?
Sure.
Or don't need to be in a relationship.
Right.
Because you're wanting something. Anytime you dream of something bigger than what you got, your dream should be big enough to scare you. That should be like, wow, I want that. And it should be like, wow, I want to make that happen. If all you're choosing is stuff that you know you can have, right? I don't have to grow better. I don't have to give, who's this sister? What I got to do, in order to earn her respect? What I got to do so that she'll stay with me, right? And not be choosing to be with somebody else. Right? That is, we have feelings.
Yeah.
And some of those feelings are scare or anxiousness or, risk or whatever. At the same time, it shouldn't be turned into, I am insecure.
Yeah. Okay? It's a level of, when I think as men, when we get into relationships or we're on the precipice of a relationship, right? There's that, do I remain here where I'm being, quote unquote cool, or do I step over the line and give that level of vulnerability? And that vulnerability has the fear within it, right? Because you're opening up to yourself. And I think that's the piece also, that a quality woman, if you're dealing with a quality woman and you show her that generally goes in a good direction for
her. Oh, absolutely. And if it doesn't go in a good direction, it's like
that way.
If the person is not able to handle your vulnerable, your tender sides, okay, then it means you don't have a safe place for that, all right? And you can't force that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. There's one other thing that has come up because, I do relationship counseling and consultation and communication, conflict resolution. And on Tuesday, I had a set with a couple of here, and I did. And it reminds me to make this point, and it has to do with the environment that we're in that participates in what I call trauma porn.
Mm.
That is, folks typically are so used to giving folks room to talk about the wounds or the trauma. And at the same time, we less and less are providing the support for and insisting on the healing.
Mm.
So here's a brother who was talking about he got abandonment issues. I said, cool. Can you tell me what they are? And can you tell me more what they have you do or not do in this relationship? He kept wanting to go back to the abandonment issues. I said, no. I got that you got them. Please do the work to tell yourself, because of whatever happened and how it affected you, how does that determine or affect what you do in this relationship?
Right.
You see, often we get a whole lot of mileage out of, I have been wounded. My upbringing wasn't like I wanted to be, or wasn't whatever. Or I have these scares or fears or tendencies and whatever because of it. And in this society, you can actually make a whole lot of money. You can get on stage and talk about how deep your wounds are. What really needs center stage is what the old folks used to say, your testimony. See, to have a testimony, you got to at least heal some of the wounds. Okay?
Sure.
All right. So now you got a testimony. You may not be finished with them, but you have a testimony of, I was wounded, and here's what I began to do. Right. Whether you're calling on Oludumare, whether you're calling on Jesus Christ, whether you're calling on whoever, Allah, that is, these are the things that I began to do to heal this. And so I am not injured from that in the same way. Okay. That doesn't dictate my behavior forever. What I had to break through is this brother had been caught or taught that since he was wounded, she was supposed to give him a pass for some errant behavior. Like, excuse me, hello? No. I got that you were wounded. Right? And guess what? It's your responsibility to heal that.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And so as brothers are listening, and sisters too, it's important that we don't get caught up in trauma porn. That is, looking at it and just dealing with the wound of it, and not the healing of it. And I think I mentioned some of it on Monday, because it's not just with the social and emotional work, it's also with medicine. And that's to let you know how almost permanent it is in this European society, structured society. On the medical side, if I have been diagnosed with high blood pressure, then high blood pressure is my trauma, or is my wound. At least that's what they'll say. And so therefore, and when I take medications, the medications are to help me control it, not to heal it. They don't even say this will help you heal, right, or anything else will help you heal. We want to watch and want you to watch your high blood pressure porn. We want you to watch it for years.
Yeah.
And pay us take this medication. I say, okay, now I'm in some emergency situation. Yeah, I'm going to take this, but tell me what I need to do to heal this.
Right.
Same thing with diabetes. You got diabetes? Take this medication to control or manage your diabetes. We want you to watch your sugar. Like, no, what we want you to do is to heal what ails you. But now that is just taken off the table. And many times in emotional social circles, that's taken off the table. It's as if you were wounded by a woman previously, by growing up, by your mama, dad, sister, brother, cousin, uncle, and them. Then therefore the standard for you goes down. We said, no, as men, no. Our community is made stronger by Wekesa healing his wounds. So a healed Wekesa is a stronger Wekesa.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I just want to caution brothers and sisters from taking our wounds and then using them as an excuse for behavior that is errant, maybe even abusive or negligent. My work is, if I recognize that my past has me be, let's say, more clinging, okay, or more overly possessive, then my job, once I recognize that, is to do the work to heal the wound so that the person is not having to endure the result of my behavior based on a wound. Let me do the work. Then I can say, you know what? I used to be. And what happened is that's because I hadn't dealt with a situation with my mother or father leaving me or some abandonment, stuff like that. But I've dealt with that, right? And so it makes perfect sense for you to have friends and for me to have friends, right? And you can be with them without me going crazy.
Right.
Under the guise that I got abandonment issues, so I end up having to control you like that. You see what I'm saying?
Sure. Absolutely. And that's, that speaks to that self-introspection piece that we have to do. But then also we have to be real clear about when we move into our next relationships, whatever they may be, even whether that's somebody that you could get into a serious relationship with or somebody that you just spending time with, whatever. When you move into that next relationship, whatever that was that you had that was trauma before, it needs to be dealt with and not brought into it.
Absolutely. That's right.
And not brought into it because it's going to lead down a road of non-success,
Exactly.
You may be able to work through it, but
the only way you work through it is if you honestly bring it to the relationship as something that you're going to work through, as opposed to that you're going to have the person have to burden.
Yeah.
Like as if it's her responsibility. All right.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's my responsibility. And so I'm working on it. I have already done something. Because my grandma would say, listen, if you want me to give you something, you got to come to the table with something. You want a nickel, bring something, okay? You bring a nickel, I'll give you a quarter, okay? But you got to come to something. And it ain't just got to be money. If you don't have no money, then agree to, like, clean the house. Agree to, mow the lawn. Do something. You got to bring something. So if I go to the relationship and I can say, here's some stuff I'm still working on, but I need to be able to say I've identified the issues. I've identified the behavior, the errant behavior that comes from it. I'm working on that, and I will continue to work on that. Not now it becomes your job to fix me. You see, it's my job to do the work on it. And it's important because you see, in this society, they will pay me to talk about my trauma. I will get billing. I will get stage presence. I will get whatever. Nonprofits get money all the time talking about Black people's trauma. They don't get as much money talking about Black people's healing. No. I'm calling out straight. Now, this is not what I know, right? And I've written a tremendous article, getting a lot of play. Called I'm tired of this trauma porn. The headline is, just as trauma can be passed on generations, so can my healing. So think about it. Think about something happened to me. I healed it, and I tell that story and what I did to heal it. Okay, and that story of my healing of the trauma and generations becomes a tool for anybody in the family. When they encounter that, they now know what to do with it. They now at least know this is how Baba Wekesa dealt with it. This is how Granddaddy deal with it. We can pass healing down generations. All right, but we don't.
I was gonna say, and it becomes, your healed way becomes modeled behavior.
Thank you.
Thank you. So
people you gonna get stuff. We gonna do bumps. We gonna be hurt. But to say, oh, okay, that can be healed. Not this is an excuse. Because see, what happens is if I talk about my trauma, then you can't expect much of me. You see, it lowers the bar. You're like, the bar ain't getting lower, baby. Okay, you know what I'm saying? The 50-yard line is still the 50-yard line. Now, it may take you longer to get there, okay? You may have to go there by different means, but you still got to get there. The relationship still demands being a man, right, in a relationship where my job is to create a family and a foundation where these children that come through, whether they are my biological children or children that are brought to the relationship, or I bring in from the community, where these children, all right, grow into something that can aid the community, where my being in this relationship has a stability so that I become something in the community, whether it's a store owner, a plumber, or somebody with some respect and honor, so that our community gets lifted. And I can't use that I was wounded, and I'm not making light of any wounds that we had. Mm-hmm. I'm also not making light of our power to heal it. And this society wants to make light of our power to heal it. You cannot heal your diabetes, and you certainly can't heal abuse that you had when you were 12.
Right.
And I say,
well, they don't want to talk about it, because at the end of the day, and we're up against the clock, but at the end of the day, that doesn't work in a capitalistic society.
Thank you. Because in a capitalist society, I'm supposed to be wounded. Why? Because then I can buy what you give me as my surrogate healing, right? I feel bad, so let me go and buy something. Let me wear something. Let me put on all this everything, okay? Whether it's I got to have 32-inch spinners to feel better, okay? Or I got to have 4 feet eyelashes to feel better, okay? You know what I'm saying? It's you.
That shouldn't make anybody feel better, by the way.
Well, I know it. But to your point, a capitalist society wants everybody to be off kilter.
Yeah.
They want relationships to be off. Okay. They don't want strong families. Capitalists, that doesn't serve. See, a strong family hooks with another strong family. Before you know it, you got a strong village. Before you know it, you got a strong people. And we can say we don't want that here. And
what's that do?
It's better to have a bunch of hurt individuals. Like when you go to a football game, pre-COVID, so you got 30,000 people in the stadium, but they're not a family. They all can be easily manipulated like this. Make them a family, and you can't easily manipulate them because they have their own connections, their own relationships, and their own agenda. So in a capitalist society, you want everybody who you can be. You can herd in and out of McDonald's. You can herd into a Louis Vuitton. You can herd here and herd there, wherever you want them to go. And their relationships are not strong enough with each other so that they decide among themselves about another way. And whatever. And so you're absolutely right. This wounding that we have, it serves capitalist agenda.
Man, Baba, we could go. We could go. This is a great conversation for so many reasons, and there's so many tentacles to it, right? That ultimately circle back to what you just were talking about, and that's us building the village. And what I think, and I'll say this and then I'll leave it alone, what's being missed more than anything is the world is a better place when our villages are stronger, right? And when I say the world, I'm talking about other cultures and everything.
The
whole world is better when our villages are stronger. And that's what, man, that's my goal. That's my goal.
You're doing it.
So,
we're doing it.
We're doing it, right? So, man, I got to do this before we check out, because it's what we always do every week, and that's talk about habits, rituals, and disciplines, which you've heard this before. But I want to talk about habits, rituals, and disciplines as they relate to the relationship. Can you give us quick habits, rituals, and disciplines that work for you and Mama Fia?
Yes. I always, if I'm away, I learned this from my great-grandfather when I asked him how he was so successful in his relationship. He said, well, son, whenever you go away, bring your lady something. Let her know, particularly you got to be gone for 2 days, 3 or something like that. Like, always let her know you're thinking about it, by bringing her something. So, that's, a habit that we have. lately we also have a habit of getting up and exercising together at 6:30 in the morning. Okay. And that's a beautiful thing. And I'm always complimenting her, not criticizing her, on what she's doing in her own way. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And she's complimenting me, there. And and of course, I always tell her I love her. And now she tells me to.
Y'all work through that, right? Y'all work through that. Man, listen, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I completely and wholeheartedly appreciate you being here. Appreciate you for Monday, man. Again, the conversation Monday was awesome. And I know that we're going to have really a part 3, because that was the second one we've done like that. But that's that conversation. Just as I was saying tonight, there's so many tentacles to it, and so much to be said, and so much that our young folks need to hear, especially in today's society. There's so much noise coming from outside that they need to hear from brothers like you and other guys that we had on the panel. So thank you again, Baba, and love you, and we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right. Ashe.
Ashe.
We speak, I feel this melody telling me my black dreams are safe.